What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark, back to MovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm tackling the final episode, I think, of Dune Prophecy. This is season 1, episode 6. Uh, I Last week I mentioned that I thought it would feel kind of abrupt, and somebody commented and they were like, your name feels. I was like, okay, thanks. Anyway, um, John Stark feels like a last minute thought. I was like, thanks. If you're back this week, I heard you, and I have nothing deeper to say about Doom Prophecy except now that it's over, we can really dive into what was this like? What did it do? Did it help Dune? Are they going to do a second season? I think this is crafted in a way where it looks like they are. Like, it looks like they want to. But then again, you could say that about the Penguin, but I don't think they're ever going to get Colin Farrell back into that suit without throwing oodles and oodles of money at him because he hates being in that suit. So unless he wins the Emmy, I don't see a second season of the Penguin happening. I don't even know if he'd come back for a Batman sequel and put on that makeup. He seems to be tired of having to put all that prosthetic shit on his face. So, um, but Dune Prophecy, spoilers ahead. Who survived? Well, after everything, not many people, which was one of my concerns. Was I was like, they built sort of a really expansive cast, and it's like, how, if you're gonna spend all this time building out this world with all of these characters we have to follow through all of these episodes, what are you gonna do? Well, the Valeria, whatever her name is, Vanya, I never know what her name is. Um, she uh, she survives barely. She survives the whole process, which we learn is some sort of like a virus. There's a character that's killed sort of towards the beginning of the episode, and they refer to it as a virus that when they're being set on fire, like this process of setting them on fire. And uh, but Tula's there to save her and reminds her, that you can't let the guilt. So she's experiencing the brother's death that we learned about in another episode, and she obviously feels responsible, like she could have saved him, and she has to learn to let that go so that she can survive being uh, killed by not being, so she can survive this whatever the hell's going on to her, done by Duncan or dumb. I don't know what his name is either. I don't care what any of these people's names are. I'm so not invested in Dune Prophecy. Um, but I guess the big reveal was that Tula, the reason why she's there, first of all, is to save her sister, but also turns out uh, he's her son. After all of that, he is her son. Travis Fimmel, Duncan, Dominic, uh, I don't know, dumpster fire, is her son. Great, because there was like a thing at the beginning, and we get this whole sequence where backstory where she gives birth, and then at the same time there was like another mom that gave birth to a stillborn child, so they swapped kids, and so then she's like cradling a stillborn baby, and I was just like, this is so weird. Um, so Tula, Vanya, and I don't know, Double D. He They all survive this thing, the three leads, because of course they do. But does anybody else? And the answer to that question is yes. So the princess survives. There's this huge rescue thing where they go in and get her, but she won't leave without her boyfriend. So the sword master lives to Kieran. It's weird that I remember his name. Absolutely weird that I remembered his name. Um, but they both survive and they leave with Valeria, whatever her name is, and go to uh see, it's why does the American remember Kieran and Tula but nobody else's name? Um and at the end of the thing they're shown with Vanya going off to Arrakis or whatever. They're at a port in Arrakis, so which makes me think season two. Like the way that they left those characters was like, okay, so we have a second season because the battle was not over. Like the Sisterhood is still, I mean, there's still people who are the Sisterhood. He didn't win, and she says this thing. She's like, if the war has to be fought in the shadows, then they'll fight in the shadows. But basically, I think every other sister is dead. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think every other sister died. There might be like one that's alive that just they forgot to kill off in a sequence. I do kind of think about there was the sister that the sequence where they're shouting at everybody, and there was the one sister that didn't end up cutting her own throat, and she was so scared. I don't think she died. I think she's alive out there somewhere too. So wherever she is, um, that that poor that poor girl. But that's how they reduced the cast real fast. Was doing the screaming and the voice, um, which got all of the annihilated. Like most of they did the work for him, basically. um, and poor Theodosia sacrifices herself. She pretends to be a guard, but she does stab him. And to be fair, like I was kind of like at the end of this, I was like, I wish they had stuck with and just unlimited series because he shouldn't be alive. Like, first of all, he's stabbed. He doesn't have like he's not fucking Logan. He's not he's not healing himself. So he's already injured going into this final battle between him and Von Viserys. Uh and then we've already seen that when he uses his power, it affects him. Like his back is all scarred. He's had to use his power uh, again and again, and now he's using his power against his most challenging opponent. And it's like this should be hurting him the most. Like it should be using up the most amount of life. Like he has a finite amount of time that he can really use his power before it kills him. And then because she breaks it, you see that he's writhing in pain because I guess it goes back on him. And we see there's a hint, which is why I'm like, there has to be a season two that they're planning for this, about the machines and how they put this eye in him. And that's, he's their tool, the machines of the past. So that's how he has his powers. But they didn't give him the healing. The dude still has a gut wound, and he's been recovering from every time he's used his power before that has been giving him scars. So he definitely fucked up his body this time. And then Tula goes over to him and just is kind of like nice to him for like 5, and he just stands up, and he's got like by the time, I mean he was at like full voice when he ordered the guards to take her away. He's like, take her away. I was like, this guy should be near death. Like at bare minimum, should be near death. Like I don't understand how he's standing and like walking around now. Like he was more in pain in the other sequence when he burned those people in front of everybody. Remember, he was like bleeding from everything, and he left the blood on the thing. Here, he just kind of stands up. He's like, "Yeah, that happened." Like consistency, man. Like you have to have consistency with this dude's abilities. Like like what is his thing? Like what? I feel like they're so inconsistent with him. And at the end of this, I feel like what was happening is that they didn't originally intend for this to be a limited series, and then they wrote themselves out of a limited series. And part of this was like, well, they're like, well, if we're gonna do a second season, well, we have to have him, because otherwise we're gonna have to have a new villain. And the only other person who's alive at the end of this who could possibly serve as a new villain is the Queen, because everyone else dies. Mark Strong realizes he's never allowed to make his own choices, so he stabs himself, instead of his, because Vanya tasked Francesca with the stabbing him with this poison needle, but he just does it himself. He's just like, you know what? Because he's been told that he doesn't have any real power, and that Duncan Dominic Double D doesn't have um, any power. Is doesn't actually serve him, but serves the cause. So now he's serving the queen because the queen is leaning into the cause, so to speak. So he's just becoming a figurehead, and he has no real power anymore. So he lets his mistress, uh, who didn't want to kill him, wasn't going to. He takes the weapon anyway and kills himself, and then the queen takes the needle and stabs Francesca with it. So Francesca dies. Um, yeah. So like we have at least two sisters that are alive still, and we have um, Duncan Dominic. We have the queen. We have the princess and her lover, and maybe some other sisters that were just too small that they forgot to they forgot to kill off. Um, Otherwise, this was a pretty brutal episode in terms of the body counts, especially that one death sequence where like all the sisters just slit their own throats. So, um, yeah, I'm glad this is over. I'm glad Dune Prophecy is over. I think it's probably an expensive series. I wonder if Max is going to renew it. Its ratings are not what the Joker's are. So um, I think they're going to look at cost and look at what is the benefit, and is there reason to do a second season of this when they only have one more Dune movie to do. So I have a feeling that this is going to stay a one season, one and done, even though they left the door open, even though there's more Dune that they could explore. I think it's more likely that they would explore a different Dune series because of having the rights to Dune. I don't think we'll follow these characters again. That's my prediction. Whether they've ordered, I'm unaware of whether or not they've ordered a second season or not. That doesn't always mean it, especially Max. Especially with Warner Brothers Discovery, the fact that you exist means nothing. The fact that they've given you a green light means nothing. They greenlit a final season for Westworld and then backed out of that, and they ended up having to pay the actors anyway because they had already ordered it. So they were willing to. They constantly take the hit on things that they don't need to take a hit on because they're so worried about, I don't know, like tax losses or something. I'm trying to understand how David Zaslav is running WBD, but it's definitely not in favor of content. So Dune Prophecy could have got a 10 season renewal. It wouldn't mean anything. It could be canceled tomorrow. So I'll believe it when I see it. Like with Warner Brothers Discovery, I've learned not to accept that things exist until they're actually released. And even then, they could still get purged in a content thing. Like Westworld is no longer on Max. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird, but there's an entire Batgirl movie that's gone. The Coyote versus Acme. Where'd that go? Studios were bidding on that, and I don't ever remember. I still think they took it as a tax write-off, even though studios were willing to buy it. That was something that everybody's trying to jump in on, and nothing. So we'll see. But I don't feel strongly moved to watch more of this either way, which is sad because I think they had a vibe here going, but it was battling too much with either being a limited or knowing for sure that they were going for multi-season. There's something that and some people shit on House of the Dragon because they're like, well, it's stretching this, it's stretching itself. But yeah, but you're getting character development along the way too. I'm really getting to know who the characters are in House of the Dragon, as opposed to Dune, where I'm like, I don't even know, I can't remember these people's names. You know, there's 6 episodes, there's like 30 characters. I don't have facial recognition. It's a bitch. So I much prefer House of the Dragon's approach because it knows it's a series. It knows that there's going to be more than one season. I much rather would have that be for Dune. Would them commit to a Dune series that they're like, well, we intend on this running multiple seasons, than whatever the hell. So I'm gonna give Dune Prophecy season 1 episode 6 a B minus. Uh, yeah, I'm glad it's over. I would have stopped recapping this, but it feels weird to just a 6 episode show to stop at like episode 3. It's just I'm done. It's like I can do 6 episodes, but I know I'm like the least interesting recapper on this show. Well, I'm also not interested in the show. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you guys on the other side.